Hello, folks. Welcome to Canal Channel Jose. Today we're going to be doing a live on how we do basic maintenance or replacement of the brake pads on our Toyota Tercel. And just basic things that we do about this kind of procedure. So we're using our brand that we have bought in Duralast, and we have purchased these in the past, and they're lifetime warranty. So we have this car for about more than 10 years. So we've been replacing the brake pads on this car for that many years, and we only bought it once. So as we take him back, we buy him again, and then we replace him, take him back, and then we get our money back. So it's lifetime warranty for this kind of scenario. So it's helping us on save money. So we do the labor ourselves. That's where saving money comes into. When you replace components yourself, that's where you save a lot of money. So today we're just going to be replacing the brake pads. We're not replacing the rotor. And what we have done is we have lifted our car from both sides and set it on jack stands because we're working on the other side as well. So then we have put the two lug nuts back into the rotor so it keeps it from floating around and moving around. And we have turned or wheel or steering like if we were making a right turn, so that way we can expose the two 12-millimeter bolts for the slider so we can take them off and take the caliper off so we can get to the brake pads. But before we do that, what we have done is we open the reservoir up in the engine compartment, so that way the pressure that we're going to be sending back on the piston and all that fluid goes back up there and doesn't create pressure on the cylinder or master cylinder. So it's just sitting, the cap is just sitting in there. So for us, because this is a one piston system, what we do is we just get a screwdriver, we put it right in between the in an opening, and then we compress it back in with one screwdriver, because this system is so basic that is not a 6 piston or 4 piston dual piston where you need tools like this. This tool, what it is meant to separate or compress pistons back in, and it's a ratcheting system. So as you spin the ratcheting, we're doing it a quicker way, this will open and spread and compress pistons both sides. So this is a tool that we use for when it's 4 piston dual piston, because you can't compress all the pistons at once with one screwdriver or one clamp. You got to use this kind of tools for that scenario. We're just showing you what we use for different scenarios on the braking pads or braking system. So now with that said, we're going to get a close look of how we do this. We're just going to be replacing the brake pads on this system, and hopefully we can get a good shot about this. We're doing it live. So what we're using is just our ratchet with a 12-millimeter socket for these two bolts for the sliders. And then we're going to be using wire brush just in case if we need to wire brush any of the debris that has built up around anywhere else on the caliper. We're using the grease to slide for in case our sliders are not greased up and they have problems sliding. A rag, we're going to be using our brake cleaner, and then we have the brand new brakes, both of them. So, and we use our impact wrench to take this off. So with that, we're going to start. We're going to put our screwdriver right in here, and we're going to compress the caliper all the way in, so that way when we put the new brake pads, we take it off. We do this right before we start the job. So as you can see, it moves. It actually is pretty good, so we don't have problems with the sliders right now. So now we can loosen up our two 12-millimeter bolts. And this is basic understanding of the basic replacement that we do on brake pads. So we loosen them. And these bolts shouldn't be that too tight, because these bolts, all they do is just secure the sliders from coming off. And so they shouldn't be that tight. And because they're long bolts too, you can break them. So on our side, there's a short bolt, and there's a longer bolt. Longer for the top, shorter for the lower part. Once we do that, we can slide, bring our caliper back out, and as you can see, our piston is completely pressed in. So now we don't have to deal with that. So our sliders, they move on this side. On the other side, they were not moving. So we had to grease them up. But this side, they're they're good. So we put them, we set our caliper right here. Don't let it hang because that hose might break. So here are brake pads. There's two of them, one on the inner part and one on the other part. And they have these little springs or these little wires. They act as a spring, so they separate the brake from the rotor as it spin, and the brakes are not needed. So when you press the brakes, then they go back. They try to avoid friction as you're driving with these little components. So what we do is we take them both out. They just slide off. There's two of them. They come in the new kit. So then one of the brake pads slides outwards. You just gotta, because there might be some debris or something in there, the brake pad. And the rule of thumb is that if this structure, the backing plate that makes the brake pad, is about the same thickness or thicker than the brake pad itself, it's time to replace them. So in our case, we're getting there. We still have some meat, but we're replacing them because they're we're gonna compare them to the brand new one. As you can see, there's, look at the new brake pad, look at the old one. We have a big difference right there. So we're replacing them because they're lifetime warranty. We just go take them back and then we get our money back. So we took one off. The inner one slides right in like this. They're both the same. There's no inner and outer brake pad on this. And some cars, you might have an inner brake pad and outer brake pad for both sides. So two brake pads on the kit might be the same and the other two might be the same because one is for the outer and the other one is for the other outer side, and then the other two are for the inner side for both sides. So you gotta be careful on that. So now we have these little stainless steel tabs that come in the kit like this. Sometimes you might get them, sometimes you don't get them, depends on the brand or the quality of the brake pads. So those, what these are is to keep the brake pad goes right in here while the brake pad is on. And what this does is it keeps the brake pad from bouncing around in your braking system. If you don't put these, your brake pad might be bouncing around back and forth like this, and you get different noises in the system. So you want to take those off if they're good. Sometimes you don't have to replace them. We replace them on this case. There's 4 of them on our case. Sometimes they come in one piece and you slide the whole thing in. But on our case, it's 4 of them. Stainless steel. You got to be careful with it. So now what we do is we just do a little clean up in that area with our little wire brush. Some dust from the brake pads from being in there. And we have our little pen that we're going to catch any of that debris. Once we do that, we get our brake cleaner and we spray it and we catch it. And if you want, you can go around the whole rotor. Just to give it a good clean up. Then before we run out of it, we get our brand new brake pads. And I rub them against each other. Tap them to get some of the surface dust that it might be in the beginning. Clean it, let it evaporate. The other one. If I would recommend you using gloves. Myself, I'm used to this kind of stuff. And sometimes for me, gloves is getting on the way. I'm a very mechanical person. So these ones, they have sides and you gotta know where to put them. So this one, recommend you looking at them when you're putting them, taking them off and putting them in, because that way you get an idea of where they go. And also when you're doing brake pads, on one side you leave one wheel off as a reference, so that way you can look at how the brake pads need to go. So you're using a blueprint from one side to the other side, even in case you don't know how components go, especially when you're doing drum brakes. Drum brakes are very, very confusing because there's so many springs, so many moving components on the braking shoes. Now that we have put those on, we grab one of our brake pads, and they have an angle that the rotor has to, they have the side where the rotor has to touch. So this area is the brake pad, this is the backing plate. You cannot put this against the rotor. You got to make sure that you put it in the right way. So you find where the surface or where the rotor is going to be touching, you put them that way. You grab the outer one or either side, and we're gonna slide them in, and they fit pretty tight in there because these components, they make it to fall in pretty tight so they don't move around and they don't wobble. So when we grab the other brake pad, now that it's clean, and we slide it from the inner side towards the rotor, there's a lot of difference. This is why this area, the surface has increased the amount of distance from this end to this end due to the brake pads that have this surface. They have more meat. So now that's why we have to compress the piston back in. So when we slide it right over, the throat of it slides over it, and then the piston comes over to the back of this brake pad, and it starts from all the way from the inner part of the piston to start pushing out. These ones go in there. These are the anti-friction little clips. The job of these are to keep the brake pads, when they're not being used, to force them a little bit of force outwards so they don't do contact with the rotor and they don't create much friction. That's the point of these. They're anti-friction clips. Do they work a lot? I don't know, but I put them on because little anti-friction might be good when I'm not using the brakes. So now that we have done that, the sliders look good. Sometimes you gotta buy these boots, these rubber boots. You gotta buy them because they might be torn. In our case, they're looking like we need to replace them. So we're gonna go to Toyota, order these, and get them, or we'll go on Amazon and see we can buy them. One of them is torn a little bit. That'll be okay for now. But in the next replacement, we're gonna replace the boot. There's 2 and 2 on these. There's 4 in total, and there's 4 on the other side. So you need to buy 8 of them in total. So now that we have the sliders, these guys, you gotta make sure that they slide good, because what they do is that your caliper, when it pushes, it creates even pressure to both brake pads, so one doesn't wear more than the other. Because see, these guys don't slide, the piston is always going to be pushing more into that one brake pad, and the other one is not going to get any pressure. So that inner brake pad is always going to wear out faster than the outer brake pad. That's the purpose of the sliders, so they can center and put even pressure to both brake pads so they wear out evenly. Now that we have done that, we put we slide these guys all the way in so we can put them over, and our piston is the one that is always in one side. So another thing we do is, well, right before we put them, I put a little grease right in the area where the brake pads are going to be touching the caliper, so that it makes a little lubrication and it doesn't start squeaking on that area. So we put a little bit of where the brake pads are going to be touching and into the piston. Now we can put it over it. You want to make sure that you don't put any grease now in the braking system, the piston, or any grease into the rotor or the brake pads themselves. We got him. So now we get the longer bolt that goes on the top. We guide it. We're having it's a little complicated. We got the bottom one and the upper one. We just tighten it all the way in to make sure that we don't get any cross threaded and we mess up the system. You always start hand tightening every single bolt that you can think of So that way you can give it a halfway through or almost all the way in, and then you can put the tools into it, because if you start with tools, you might cross thread, especially on the lug nuts. You want to put them by hand as much as you can, and then put the impact gun to it. Because if you start with the impact gun and it went in twisted, you're going to mess up those threads. So I always hand tighten it as much as I can, and then I put the tools into it. So now we have brand new brake pads with a brand new retaining clips, or these guys, stainless steel. And then we have the anti-friction clips. And then now what we do is we tighten these two bolts. And then this purchasing area, this air nipple, you take that air out of this. You don't have to do this in this case. When you're doing brake replacement, you don't have to get oil out of there. You only use this bleeding system to get air out of this when you're replacing the actual caliper. When you disconnect the system here and you compromise the system and there's air trapped in there, this is the purpose of these bleeding systems, or to drain out all oil. So when you're doing a flush, this is where you do it too. For now, we don't touch this guy because we never compromise the inside of the hydraulic system. Another thing, when you're installing calipers, make sure that this bleeding system or this nipple is not pointing downwards. Because if you're putting calipers in there and you put this one on the other side and the other side on this side, because they're fit exactly the same, this guy is going to be in the bottom. There's no way you can get the air out of the system if that nipple is pointing downwards. The air gets trapped in the highest point. That's why they made it on the highest point, because then you can put a little hose attached to it, to a little container. You loosen it, and then you do the air bleeding system, or the purging the air out of the system. But for now, we don't do that. This is just for that scenario. When you remove these calipers and you put new ones, or you compromise the brake line to expose it for air going in there. That's the only reason. So now we tighten this this bolt, and we have about the feeling of how much we can tighten it there. They don't require much because these bolts are pretty long, and you can twist it and break it somewhere here. This bolt goes about 5, 6, 4, 5 inches. This one goes about 3, 4 inches. So now that we have done that, we have brand new brake pads in this system. All we have to do now is go and press our pedal slowly so that caliper can center, and we know that everything's going to be working properly. This system now has we didn't replace the rotor because our rotor is in good surface condition. And some people might say, well, when you replace brake pads, you replace rotors. It all depends on how much brake pads have worn out your rotor, what condition of your rotor is. Or on our side, we just replace the brake pads because our rotors are pretty good. They don't need to be replaced. They have pretty good. They're not scratched. We don't touch them right now because we have all this grease, but they don't have any scratching. They don't have low points. They're even surface wear out. And one thing is that when you put different brake pads, if you put a more expensive brake pads, what this gonna do, those brake pads are more aggressive and they do brake better, but they're gonna wear out your rotor because they're made with other materials that they actually start wearing the rotor down as the brake pads wear out too. So the more aggressive brake pads, the more your rotor is gonna get eaten out too. We don't use performance brake pads because we don't need that much power of stopping power. We just need basic stuff. So these brake pads are gonna be doing just basic braking. We don't go racing anything, so we don't sacrifice that rotor as well, because these rotors sometimes can be very expensive. In our case, we don't need a braking system like performance. So now we're gonna press our pedal to see how much of so if you can see on the camera, we're pressing the pedal and the pedal got pretty stiff. So the hydraulic system is fully out on the piston, and the oil is already to its level. So this guy, the piston, came out and squeezed those two brake pads, and this center itself. That's the reason of the sliders. So it's pretty simple system, pretty simple maintenance. So we hopefully this was a pretty good information, but we're just doing a basic brake pads replacement. These, the rule of thumb on these is that if the backing plate is uh, the sun, if the backing plate is thicker or the same thickness of the brake pad surface, it's time to replace them, because sometimes we wait until they're metal to metal, and that's too late, because then at that point you're replacing a rotor as well. That's a rule of thumb. Usually some of these brake pads have a warning sheet metal in this. These don't have it because they don't have room to put them on. So, but this one has a little crack in there, and it tells you when that surface becomes all the way even and there's no more crack in there, that's when we replace them. Plus, these brake pads were cracking inside as well too, so we are replacing them because of different judgment. So now we replace them. We have lifetime warranty, so we don't have to worry. We just take them back and we get our money back, and then we can keep replacing them as we need them. Those little dust boots for this, we're gonna have to order them so we can replace them, because those, what they do is that they keep the moist and the contaminants from getting into the slider, and the grease from evaporating and becoming a paste. So they're always a good sliding condition. So that way your brake pads wear out evenly, and you get no trouble of the brakes shaking or things like that. So the sliders have to be lubricated, working conditions for the braking system to work properly. So with that said, hopefully this video was useful. I get some comments, and Block Boy 209. Hi, I'm new. Can I get a shout out? Of course, Block Boy. Hello to you, man. Hopefully everything's going good with you, and thank you for watching our video, and for everybody else as well. We're just doing basic maintenance, but thank you, Block Boy. Thank you for staying here with us and watching our live and basic stuff. Hello to you, man. Thank you so much. We like to have people um, jump in the conversation, because sometimes they bring some good information. All the time is good information, but sometimes it's better information than what we said, because you guys watch the points that we miss, and sometimes you guys actually bring it and start providing more information than what we have provided, and that helps other people as well. So this is all about helping each other and helping you guys how to understand a little bit of the braking system maintenance. Sometimes people are scared of doing this braking system maintenance because they think that their car is not going to stop. But like I said, if you start actually replacing brake pads, what I do is I just leave one side, or just like it is, and then start working on the other side, and that's going to be your blueprint in case you get lost. So then you come back to the other side, and then you start watching, okay, this component goes like this. So you always study what's going on in one end when you're doing the other side. Don't ever just break down both sides, because one is going to guide the other to how to go back in. So Black Boy, I subscribe. Thank you so much for subscribing, man. And this channel, this channel, or our channel, El Channel, it's been growing because of you guys, and that's why we keep providing good information, or information that we think that is good for you guys. Rubén Sechano, buenas tardes desde Chicali, ánimo. Rubén, gracias, man. Thank you for watching. Gracias por vernos. Rubén, tuvimos uno en vivo en español y fue el pasadito, apenas lo acabamos de subir, ahora estamos haciendo el de inglés. So, with that said, folks, hopefully this was useful and helpful, and we'll be keeping on making more lives as we come across different replacements or things like that. But we usually do lives just telling information, not never doing this kind of stuff. So this is our first live or doing a basic maintenance on our car. We thought it was going to get very hard or a struggle, and we didn't. So hopefully this was useful. CJ like stuff. ¿Qué tal, güey? Saludos, man. Thank you for watching, man, and for your comments. So that's it. Not much to it. And basic maintenance. And you can where you save money is when you buy the component, but then you do the replacement. That's where you save money. And if you buy components like we do that have lifetime warranty, every time you replace it, you're gonna actually replace it for free if you do it the labor. You find the time to do it, and then you do the. We do brake pads, struts, uh, water pumps, radiators, things like that. We do like lifetime warranty, so that way we can, if it goes bad, we just replace it ourselves, and we don't sell our cars. So this car's been with us about 13, 14 years. So every time we replace the brake pads, it might be a couple $50, $50. So that's how much we've been saving on the part plus the labor. So we're getting free parts now because we just bought it one time and now we have just replacing it. So we just take it back. We bought him already. We bought him again to replace him with a couple times. Now we put all these brake pads in the box. We take him to the store and we get our money back again. So until the next time, we buy him again, replace him, and then we take him back to the store again. So that's how we do, and that's how you save money a lot of times, because you buy one part and you pay one price, and then whenever you have to buy it again, if you don't have the lifetime warranty, you're gonna buy it again, and then you're gonna have to pay the mechanic to do it again as well. So that's where you buy the part, pay the mechanic, buy the part, pay the mechanic. That's how your money goes out of your pocket into the car world. So if you learn how to do some of the basic maintenance, oil change, brake pads, struts, you don't have to do a full refurbished engine, but just basic stuff. You start saving a lot of money slowly, and then you can put the money into the other stuff that you want to do to your car slowly. Sound system, I don't know, wheels, exhaust, some of the legal stuff that you can do to it. Now, not just by blowing your money into the mechanic shops and the new parts every time. So hopefully that was helpful and useful. Sí, ¿qué tal, güey? Rubén Fimbres, no problem, man, extiendo por poquito. No, no. Está bien, Rubén, gracias. Allí tenemos el en español completamente sobre el otro lado, pero este fue en inglés, pero gracias, amigo, por estar aquí. Thank you so much. So, excuse me, it's getting a little cold. So we're about to wrap this up, put our wheel back on, and then take our car for a drive. So this car is ready for another braking situation. So that's it. So this tool is very important for dual or 4 or 6 pistons. These tools are very recommended to be used for that scenario. For one piston, we don't need it. We just need a clamp, and we recommend you using this kind of stuff too. Brake system cleaner, because sometimes there's a little wire brush like this to clean around the debris that brake pads release, and they start building up. So you can get it out of there, because that's debris that might break off and get into your brake pad again and make a mess. Not make a mess, but start wearing it out. And very important, the grease for your sliders and some of the components. Don't put this on the rotor or the brake pads where they touch the rotor. You want to make sure that that's clean. But this is just for the places where there might be friction between the metals of the sliders and the piston to the backing plate of the brake, or the brake to the piston, things like that. But with that, our pen to catch all the debris, all that stuff. So that's it. We're just going to put our wheel back on, tighten it, using our Impact Milwaukee M18 gun. That gun has been so good to us that we recommend it. Well, folks, hopefully this was useful and helpful. And thank you for watching. All of you that have been on our channel. Black Boy, thank you so much for subscribing and being here, man. Hopefully there was something useful out of this. And Ruben, thank you, man. CJ like stuff. Thank you so much. Wish you guys a good night, and we'll see you probably in a little bit on another live about different stuff. But for now, we're gonna clean this up. All right. Take care, guys. Cuídense mucho. Nos vemos al rato.